Ukraine just loves to strike the Russian military airfields. For example, yesterday night there were kabooms recorded in Borysaglebsk airfield of Russia. This is Belgorod Oblast, not far away from Ukraine. Those squares are the fires detected by the NASA satellite images, especially made for the fire detection purposes. But we also have the evidence from the ground, so something is definitely burning there. According to Ukraine, some sort of the ammunition facility was hit on territory of the airfield. Yeah, sorry, it's not the Belgorod, but Voronezh Oblast, a little bit further from Ukraine, so 300 kilometers. That's why Russia still keeps their planes there, like Sukhoi Su-30, Sukhoi Su-34, Su-35, and some of the helicopters. However, now it's hard to say whether Russia lost some of the aircraft there. But what we say for sure that Ukraine intensified the strikes on many of the Russian military facilities, including airfields. I would say that there is the probability for the Russian airplanes to kaput because fire was detected close or at the apron, you may see here. Yeah guys, it's one more update. Hello and welcome, let's go. Oh, you see, there was the attack on Novorossiysk port this morning. There is the drone boat in the bay in this harbor, which was finished off by Russians. However, some of the FPV drones from this boat went to hit the infrastructure facilities of port. Yeah, Russians cancelled the boat, but it was already too late for them. Here you can see close perspective, more or less close, and there is the boat. Yeah, this is Novorossiysk. This night, Ukraine launched some of the long-range drones at the same time with a drone boat. Novorossiysk is the biggest Russian port for the oil export, so it's very important for Ukraine to disturb the operation of the Russian oil to apply its own sanctions. However, the port is really far away from Ukraine, and it's kind of the complicated task to send the drone boats, so Ukraine was successful before even targeting some of the military ships in Novorossiysk. However, at the present time, Russians took more precautions, they have more patrols in the area. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to perform those operations. That's why the outcome, as you may see, Russia kaputted the drone boat. But after all, there was no one inside, I mean no human, so Ukraine may build more boats. Also, Ukraine launched the drones to many other Russian regions. Ukraine is responding on the Russian attacks, and it is happening like every day. However, yesterday Ukraine tried to do it more than usual, which led to the cancellations of many of the flights in the European region of Russia, from St. Petersburg to Moscow to Rostov-on-Don. All of the commercial airfields were closed. Hundreds of flights were delayed or cancelled, and people had to spend time in terminal buildings. Pity, but not for me. It is profitable for Ukraine to disturb the Russian logistics within Russia itself, to disturb the Russian economy connections, because everything in Russia is circling around main regions of St. Petersburg and Moscow, obviously. Without the proper aviation connection, the Russian economy will struggle. Speaking about aviation, Russia has problems not just with new spare parts, but also with old fleet. I wonder why they still use Antonov 2 airplanes, because those are kind of old. For example, in Ukraine it was forbidden to carry passengers on those aircraft for a very long time. Even then I was studying for a pilot, it was already forbidden to create the company with those single-engine airplanes. Well, maybe they don't have the option in this remote area. It's better to use Twin Otter at least, but it's Canadian made, it's very expensive, so Russia continued to use unsafe airplanes to fly, and 11 people were on board. The plane crash landed in Transbaikalia region. Probably something went wrong with the engine, and actually it was the reason why Ukraine banned those airplanes for commercial passenger use, because the engine is not that reliable. It's the piston engine Asha-62, which nowadays hard to maintain. The only exception for people carrying in Ukraine was the skydiving purposes, so climb, jump, yes. For other reasons, no. But Russians still try to maintain Antonov 2 flying. It is a fantastic plane for its time, but it's very hard to maintain it nowadays. This aviation accident happened this morning. 10 out of 11 people were delivered to local hospital. And one more accident happened in Russia, this time not far away from St. Petersburg. This is the flying boat, from what I may see, judging on construction. And pilot here was the constructor or designer of the Russian drones. What kind of the drones? It's hard to say for now. Here they say that everyone survived. This aircraft is Chaika L-44M, probably Russian made, because Chaika is the Russian name. Guys, here I want to thank my patrons and also members of the channel. Thank you a lot, guys, for supporting my motivation for me to film videos almost every day. And guys, if you want to support the job that I do here on YouTube, you're very welcome to my Patreon. I'll put the link for my Patreon page right in the video description below. If you don't have the opportunity to support me there, you may press your like to this video and subscribe for the channel. Don't forget, because that is how you boost this video elsewhere on YouTube. Thank you so much for it as well. Kind of the ironic story happened here. So the Russian military blogger, one of those, went to visit the Russian military facilities in occupied territory of Donetsk. So he filmed some of the videos there showing Russians, their positions, their vehicles. They removed some of the equipment not to get it on camera, but it was enough for Ukraine to strike this facility with HIMARS. And here we have the result. So total kaput, total kaboom, some of the tracks, and this stuff is no go at all. Russian military bloggers, thank you so much for telling Mr. HIMARS some of your positions.
Well, they need them for defense. I mean, I don't want to see people killed.
They need them for defense. I don't want to see people killed. He means Patriot systems and Ukrainians who are killed because of the Russian strikes. So my guess that Donald Trump will renew the support of Ukraine with Patriot missiles, because Ukraine needs those a lot. And Zelensky is also kind of positive about it. At least yesterday he commented the conversation which happened between him and Donald Trump. Zelensky mentioned that it was the most positive conversation between Ukrainian and American president since the very beginning of the Trump's presidency. So finally Donny understands the reality. But he's still not competent, and the Telegraph agrees on that. Trump could be running the most incompetent peace process in history. Why? Well, because he doesn't know a thing about Ukrainian war. But at least he starts to understand that Putin is very serious in Ukraine. I mean, with continuation of the war. He said about it himself. So Trump on if he can end fighting in Ukraine. I don't know. Donny was asked by journalists whether he is able to finish this war in Ukraine as he promised in 24 hours or whatever time. I don't know, he said in general, because this war is very, very difficult for Donny. And Donny, well, he has the same tools as the previous White House administration. The main tool actually is to support Ukraine with military and to isolate Russia more and more, applying stricter sanctions, also cooperate with partners and countries like China to influence Russia as hard as possible for them to stop at least. Shouting Putin stop in Truth Social doesn't help. Even New York Post published this article. Vlad gave his answer to peace. Mr. President, we must rearm Ukraine. Trump says that he reads this stuff every morning. I mean, New York Post, he respects this media. Well, I don't really like the policy of the media, but the author of the article and the editor, they do lots of the stuff to knock to Trump's head to make him aware of what is really happening. It's not the first time I read those good articles actually published by the New York Post. The bad thing, guys, that we understood how it will be from the very, very beginning. But Donald Trump is so incompetent that he just doesn't have intelligence to understand it and logic to process. But after this last conversation, there is tiny little hope from my side, at least, that Donny will continue the support of Ukraine at least. But in general, I do not expect anything good from the White House administration. More about the latest conversation between Trump and Putin, phone conversation. Putin confirmed that Russia will not abandon its military goals in Ukraine, so Putin will continue war, and there are different factors and markers which are showing that Russia is preparing for a new mobilization campaign that could be started kind of soon, in a few months. Basically, they brainwash people more with their propaganda, and according to information coming from the Russian opposition sources, Russia is preparing their internal military camps, training camps on territory of Russia. Whether those be used for North Korean soldiers who might be deployed, we're speaking about probably 30,000 North Koreans. Also, there was the information that Laos might send its soldiers to demine the territory of Russia in Kursk, or maybe it's gonna be a new wave of mobilization because Russia is preparing the ground, training ground. So then people ask me, then this war is going to be over? Not in a close-by perspective, my friends. It might continue for years. Yeah, not 4 years, but 4 years. It's gonna be like Afghanistan, just on a larger scale. Yeah, it's already like that, I would say. Good news from OPEC, OPEC Plus to further accelerate supply boost with a larger August hike, so they're gonna pump more. OPEC plus means Russia, so I wonder if Russia agreed on this deal after all, or they were forced just to agree, because Saudi Arabia planned already to accelerate the production. Yeah, probably Russia also has to accelerate. But whether they will have the capabilities to sell all of their oil and for what price, we'll see. But this year, despite Russia selling more oil, it gets less money to its budget by $5 billion. Yeah, the sum is not that huge for the Russian budget, but still little by little, yeah. Germany plans 6 months voluntarily military service, sources say, and yeah, officials already confirmed. Guys, I see more and more signs that Europe is preparing for war. Especially those countries which are bordering Russia, they start to build some of the trenches, defense lines even. Poland is also full in preparations. They allocate the massive amount of their GDP to maintain their military, to buy new gear. Germany, as we may see again in my last video, I've told you that 25 billion euros will be spent for the big contract to produce more tanks, more army vehicles. Chancellor Merz said that Russia is already active with its sabotage groups on territory of Germany. And yes, there was the case just recently that some of the military vehicles of Bundestag were burned down by someone. Poland also said about the Russian sabotage attacks on its territory. Denmark announced the compulsory service in army even for women. As far as I understood, it was not the volunteer service. Everything of that tells that probably those high officials in Europe, they know something. They're getting ready for something, and that something is a war. Yeah, it might sound unreal for now that Russia is very busy in Ukraine. Indeed, Russia is tagged there. They're fighting for every village, every street, every town, and it takes them lots of the losses, but you never know what is inside the mind of a Russian dictator, and potentially Russia still has many of the resources. If they announce a really huge mobilization, taking millions of people into their army, giving Kalashnikovs to them, potentially Russia still has that resource. But whether Putin is going to announce it, who knows? Maybe. His roof is already out, so he might do everything. He is very unpredicted. Even Donald Trump is in shock. He said that I do not recognize Putin. Putin has changed. Wow. Well, maybe Putin was always like that. He's just a KGB officer who got the access to unlimited power in Russia together with his KGB friends. What should you expect in this case? Absolutely everything. Everything bad. If those fellas as Rutte, some of the ministers of defense, intelligence services of European countries are saying openly about the Russian threat, I would take those seriously. So Rutte yesterday said that in case of the China attack on Taiwan, Russia might simultaneously strike NATO countries to make West very busy with Russia alone. In this case, China will have the freedom to act in Taiwan, because the main goal for NATO countries will be their own security, not some region out there in Asia. Rutte says that it is the possible real variant which Xi could ask Putin to start. So to start military action, provocation in Europe against the NATO alliance. And Putin also would like maybe to test the fifth article, because in this case, in case Donald Trump is in power, I don't really think that United States forces will be deployed to protect Baltic countries. No. Rutte also mentioned that Russia has huge military production still compared to NATO countries. He meant European countries. And also there is the help from allies like North Korea. As we all know, as I tell sometimes in my videos, North Korea supplied more artillery shells to Russia than entire alliance, NATO alliance, to Ukraine. Also, guys, I would add that there is a autocracy regime in Russia, in North Korea, in China as well. It is a dictatorship, and the value of human life in those countries, it is very low. So for them, it's actually easier to mobilize their people to serve for the army. We see what is happening in Russia, yeah? Volunteers are coming to get those few million rubles, which they are dreaming of. It is their only motivation. Russian propaganda in TV say openly, like, go and serve for millions of rubles. They have banners everywhere in the Russian cities, go and earn millions. Well, in China and North Korea it's a little different. They have their own ideology. In Russia there is no ideology, so-called Russian peace, but everything is out there. Communism, imperialism, religious fanaticism, by the way, both from Christianity, so-called, and so-called Islam, because I don't think that Russia has a real religion like that. It's just used as the propaganda tool. Kadyrov shows that, as well as those crazy Russian Orthodox patriots, Z community. So yeah, for them it's kind of easier to go and fight elsewhere. They're okay with it, mainly, compared to our Western society, where the value of the human life is pretty much high. We also focused on solo individualism compared to socialism, mainly in Western societies. It's the normal trend which exists already for decades. And right away, Medvedev, yeah, you know this guy, he wrote his response on Rutte's speech. So Rutte has clearly gorged, I hope I spelled this correctly, on too many of the magic mushrooms beloved by Dodge. Fuck, how can I read this stuff? Well, after all, it's my job, so let's continue. He sees collusion between China and Russia over Taiwan, and then a Russian attack on Europe. But he is right about one thing. He should learn Russian. It might come in handy in Siberian camp. So in a way, Medvedev confirmed the idea of Mark Rutte. I think Medvedev is like this barking voice of Putin himself. He says the stuff which Putin cannot say openly, so maybe Putin transfers his real ideas via Medvedev. One more sign about the possible war in Europe. For now it's just a conspiracy theory that, for example, Poland to tighten border controls amid growing tensions over irregular crossings. So temporary rules are applied for Germany and Lithuania. Come as far rights activists initiate border patrols. So officially now there are strictened rules to pass the border of Poland. And as we know from the Ukrainian experience, then the war had started, the borders were closed in a few hours, maybe in 20 hours, something like that. So some people, experts in internet, are saying that Poland is searching an excuse to close its border in case of war, to keep the possible military force within the country, and as an excuse now they introduce those measures against illegal immigration or legal immigration, doesn't matter. The main is to close the border or restrict the border for now, and then the war starts. Well, if people would like to flee the country, there will be already a border between two Schengen countries, Germany and Poland, so the situation will be for men, especially like in Ukraine. Well, it is hard to prove, just a conspiracy theory, but everything is possible. I think that there is the big chance, actually, guys, for some sort of the limited special military operation. It's not gonna be like in Ukraine, no, but Russia might try to test the fifth article, indeed. And it could happen very fast. Some of the experts say that by 2030, but I think faster than that, because Putin has 3.5 years for it. Because Donald Trump gives this opportunity of inaction to Putin. Tell me guys, what do you think about the possible war in Europe in the comment section below. Europe, I mean, as Ukrainians we usually say Europe for European Union countries, okay? I understand that Ukraine is Europe too, but European Union countries we call Europe, alright? To shorten the word. Kids. Yeah. This is crazy. They're playing like this, guys. I wonder who are the parents of this guy. Maybe also serving in Wagner. This is kind of expensive gear. Outdoor activity. Shouldn't be like it in this age. Putin's future army. It's been a while since we reviewed the military map, but Russia continued to expand their bridgehead in this area, eastern side of Ukraine, Donetsk region, but not that much. They took this part of the field, maybe one of the 3 lines, and it's not fully. They want to get control over this very small village, Popiev Yar, where there are just a couple of the streets. Initially, they've done kind of the fast maneuver here, I mean creating this hump, and they might go now to Pokrovsk and also to Konstantinovka, but already for 1 month they're kind of standstill in this area, and this is the first movement for a very, very long time. The other more successful direction for Russia is over here near Zaporizhia small village, and today they moved quite a lot. They managed to cross the border here. Probably the water is absent in this river, maybe because of the heat. It just dried out, that's why they may move just with infantry. So it was yesterday. Today they went close to Tolstoy. They already entered Tolstoy village. But the next river, for sure, it will be hard for them to cross. But after you can see the hills, yeah, it's not the mountain range or something. Those are high hills, you may call it like that, and there is the river also ongoing, so I hope it will play its role in stopping Russia for future perspective, because as I say to you, the end of the war is not visible, so Russians may try to gain more of the territory of Ukraine. Also in this region they moved in Vesele, so it was yesterday, it is today. Here they managed to occupy several of the fields. Judging on the military map updates, enemy is advancing, Ukraine rarely counterattacks, then it is possible. The last counterattack happened, yeah, not here, it happened here in Sumy region, and the Russian attack was stopped in this region. Those are probably the only good news if we speak about the frontline analysis for a very, very long time. However, yeah, there are some of the local fights, and Russia has enormous losses. Have some of those videos which I cannot show you over here, but I analyze them and publish sometimes very rarely on Rumble. And also yesterday I did the video especially for Patreons, analyzing the combat video. My friends, are gonna keep you updated, and now please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so you help me a lot. Subscribe for the channel also, and I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.